Good morning, welcome to the last video in the series before the daily debriefs. There is less than 1 week to go until I begin my attempt to cycle 1,000 kilometres in 4 days. Today what I wanted to do is just give you a bit of an overview of the route that I will be taking on days 1 through to 4, starting with the out and back to Swanage, then to Abergavenny, then to Minehead, and then to Wantage. I'll tell you a bit about the highlights, maybe some of the lowlights, so those would be the climbs of the day for each route, and tell you a bit about some of the sights that I will be seeing along the way. So let's go. So day 1 is to Swanage and back. It's a distance of around 248 kilometres, but in terms of lowlights there aren't too many climbs. The total elevation is only 1,780 metres, so there's no big climbs today. Not that any of my routes have climbs like the Tour de France, but some have some slightly more punchy ones than day 1 at least. The main thing about day 1 is that I'm going to see some beautiful things along the way. The first 100 kilometres takes me all the way down, skirting round Bournemouth, and then to the wonderful Sandbanks ferry, which I will need to remember to take my £1 for. That's at 100 kilometres, and then very quickly after the Sandbanks ferry, there's a whole range of beautiful things that I will be encountering, beginning partly with a wonderful shop known as Studland Stores. For those who have no idea what Studland Stores is, it is a wonderful little corner shop very near the beachfront in Studland, very near to where the wonderful camp of Purbeck Venture is. I recommend visiting it. It's got everything you would ever need and some more. Shortly after Studland Stores, obviously, there is Studland and there is the wonderful area known as Purbeck. And then at 115 kilometres, I finally reach the Swanage beachfront. So I might stop for a cheeky ice cream depending on the weather. At that point I return and I start heading back home, and along the way at 165 kilometres I will pass Ringwood Brewery, so maybe stop for a pint, and at 200 kilometres I will pass Salisbury Cathedral, one of my favourite cathedrals, the tallest cathedral. Might not be the biggest, but it is the tallest. And finally at 230 kilometres thereabouts I go through the Imber Ranges before returning home at 248 kilometres. Day 1 is more about the scenery than it is about the big climbs. Day 2 takes me to Wales, where my turning point is Abergavenny. This distance is similar to day 1, it's 246 kilometres, but there's slightly more climbing. It's not the biggest climbs of the series, but it is probably day 2. It is 2,910 metres. For me, probably the lowlights of the route will be those 2 climbs that occur right in the middle of the day. The first climb starts at 100 kilometres. It has the highest gradient of 13%, but thankfully the average gradient is less than that. And it includes a stretch of road known as Fox Hunters, which is loved by cyclists. The descent, however, has an ominous name known as the Tumble, so I'm hoping to make my way down there without enacting the name of the stretch of road. The second climb, the second big climb of the day, occurs quite soon after that one, and it starts at 120 kilometres, and it's up the side of a hill called Sugarloaf. It's a short punch of a climb, it's not as long as the previous one, and it descends into the centre of Abergavenny. It's a shorter climb, but the highest gradient on there is 18%. So probably halfway round my cycle, I'm not going to enjoy those 2 climbs. Thankfully though, there are some highlights of the day. The first one occurs twice, which is wonderful. It occurs at 60 kilometres and it occurs at 180 kilometres. And that is because it is the entrance and exit of Wales. It is the Severn Bridge that I'll be cycling over into Wales and back out of Wales as well. There's also a beautiful river known as the River Wye, and I will be running alongside that at 160 kilometres. There's also Tintern Abbey at 166 kilometres. So hopefully as I approach the kind of 2/3 point of the ride, those beautiful sights will keep me going. Near the end of the cycle, as I return towards Devizes, I will be passing Laycock and going up Bowden Hill, which is far less of a significant incline than the two in the midpoint of the ride, but still a highest gradient of 11%, and those who've cycled up it know that it can really take the wind out of you. However, the view from the top is amazing, so I shall just keep repeating that to myself as I make my way up. So day 2, slightly bigger hills, similar distance, but also some beautiful scenery along the way to keep me going. And we come to day 3, the hardest of the 4 days, I reckon. It is the longest of the 4 routes. It has also got the most climbing. So the route is 306 kilometers long, and there is a total elevation of around 3,270 kilometers. And in reality, it's up and down all day. This is the out and back journey to Minehead. Amidst the general up and down of the day, there are 3 big climbs, the lowlights of the day. And the first starts at around 100 kilometers, just outside Bridgewater, and it climbs through the Quantock Hills and descends down into Crocombe. There's a highest gradient of 13%, but it is just simply quite a punchy climb. Not too long after that is the second big climb of the day. That starts at 130 kilometres, and it meanders around the hills of the east edge of Exmoor National Park before descending into Dunster, a castle just outside Minehead. So I'll have that to look forward to as I scale the slopes. It's got a lower highest gradient. The highest gradient is 10% only. The third climb of the day is much later in the ride. It's at 245 kilometres, so I'll be thinking about the end of the day by the time I get there. And it starts after it starts at 245 kilometres, it skirts around the southeast edge of Wells with the highest gradient of 11%. So today is really about the endurance. It's about the distance, 305 kilometres, 306 kilometres, and it's about the climbing. However, there is a highlight of the day. There will be at least one, and this is at the turning point of the day, as when I'm furthest away from home, I will get to enjoy the beautiful scenery of Blue Anchor Bay, which is located between Minehead and Watchet. So I will probably take a little break there to recharge before I turn round and head back home. And so we finally come to the final day, day 4, and this is the out and back route to Wantage. It's not very direct route really, it's quite meandering through the North Wessex Downs, and again hopefully today it's more about the scenery than it is about the distance or the elevation. It's the shortest route of the 4 at around 200 kilometres and the least elevation, or the second least elevation, of 1,480 metres. There is only one big low point of the day, or one big climb, and that is the White Horse Hill in Uffington. That's at 81 kilometres, and simply just to say it's very steep. However, it is short and punchy, so hopefully it won't drain me too much for the rest of the day. But today, much like day 1, it's about the beautiful scenery of the North Wessex Downs. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty. At 24 kilometres, if the weather is good, I shall be cycling the Chiseldon and Marlborough Railway Path. If the weather is bad, it might be a little bit too muddy for the road bike, so I might have to find an alternative route. And although one of the low points being Uffington Hill, the view from Uffington Hill is one of the highlights. And so really today is about churning out those final kilometres, hoping that the legs are still working, and being motivated by the scenery that is all around. That's a brief summary of the 4 routes. You can look at the routes on Komoot. The links to those routes are in the blog and the update section of my Just Giving page. Now, some of you have expressed interest in live tracking me as I cycle around to see how fast or slow my progress is. This should be possible by using the Wahoo bike computer that I use. Each morning, so the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th of July, I will post a link in the updates section of my Just Giving page. And if you click on that link, it should take you to a website that will give you a map of the route that I've completed, my current location, and I believe it will also give you a whole bunch of stats and data. So if you do want to live track me, head to those links each morning, go to my Just Giving page. While you're there, if you fancy dropping a quick donation, that would be amazing. Help me on my journey for that day. Give me power in my legs to get through those 1,000 kilometres in 4 days for hope for justice, to end slavery, to change lives.